My name is Abby Mickey. We're here to watch Amstel Gold live today on this beautiful Sunday. I'm joined by Loren Rowney, my partner in crime. Loren, hello.
Sorry, my video's not on. I just don't want to mess with the internet right now, and hopefully I'm clear.
Your voice is clear, and that's all that matters. Matt Neef is here as well. Welcome back, Matt.
Hi, thank you. Do I sound like I'm in a remix now, or is my audio okay?
You sound great.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
We are super excited that we have Brodie Chapman on today. She's currently out with injuries, so we decided to pull her into this episode of the podcast and chat with her about, racing bikes. Brodie, thank you so much.
No worries. It's it's good to be on here and try and stay relevant, for lack of a better term, because I feel like I'm so out of cycling world when I'm just at home, on the ergo. So it's good to watch. I mean, I watch every single race, but it's also nice to chat about it.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Brodie crashed at Ghent-Wevelgem and has been out since. What injuries did you have? It was pretty extensive.
Yeah, so first of all, I got knocked out. But I do remember crashing. I remember just being wiped out very instantly and then sliding on my head. And then I was like, oh no, I don't think I'm getting back up. And then the rest of it's a bit of a blur. And then I was in an ambulance. And then I was in a Belgian hospital where they told me that I broke my sacrum, which is a really difficult bone to break because it's quite solid and it's in the middle of your body. So I kind of landed on my ass and fractured my sacrum. It's not a unstable fracture, so it's not displaced, which is good. But it still was quite painful and it's quite weird because it's in the middle of your body, so kind of every system is a little bit affected by it. And then I had a concussion obviously as well. So just took it really easy. Stayed in the hospital a few days. Team looked after me. Then I came home. And I got back on the ergo, on the TT bike specifically, because you don't really sit on your sacrum area on the TT bike. You sit really far forward, so it takes a lot of pressure off. So that's what I've got. It's pretty manageable. I can walk around and function, and the concussion symptoms have mostly subsided, but it's just weird. Yeah.
And this is about the time of year that you would be kind of beginning your targets, right? Like the Ardennes, you've done well at in the past. You were an amazing teammate last year to Marta Cavalli when she won Flèche Wallonne, and we're coming into the stage race season, which are obviously very well suited for you. So,
yeah, I am obviously devastated to be missing the Ardennes. It's first of all, the first race I missed was Flanders and Dwars door Vlaanderen, and I thought that maybe that would be the only ones I'd miss, but then I realized that, in fact, I'm going to be out a lot longer than I anticipated. So, yeah, it always sucks to miss races, and you kind of flip between these feelings of, it's fine. It's just you watch it from the couch, everything's mostly fine, you're healthy, life's good. And then I have these moments of then going to, absolute bottom of my stomach devastation that I'm like, I can't believe this race is happening and I'm not there. What would I be doing? Where could I be? Oh no, I have to wait a whole other year now until I can do this again. And who's to say that I get a chance to do it again and what shape I'll be in? And I think I'm not 20 years old, so I'm not I've got 10 more Flèche Wallonnes ahead of me.
Brodie, we're watching with about 25 Ks to go and the weather's been pretty horrible at Amstel Gold today. Do you miss racing in conditions like this? Would you still rather be out there, or are you pretty happy to be sitting this one out?
No, I'd still rather be out there. I don't mind the conditions because the conditions are just the race. I don't see the conditions as separate to the race. That's the whole thing with road racing. It's an outdoor sport. The weather conditions can change the whole race dramatically, which is, again, what makes it exciting. It's not just we close the stadium off when it rains. Mm-hmm. Ghent-Wevelgem was absolutely freezing. I was so cold and nothing happened for the first 30 Ks because it was a headwind out in and it was so cold. And I do think that it makes a difference because people struggle to eat as much as they need, but at the same time, they're actually using more energy to try and stay warm and attentive, and it affects everything. It affects your ability to pay attention. It affects your ability to react quickly. Plus, there's also some riders who are more comfortable and capable in this kind of conditions, skillfully, and others who are definitely not. So I think I try to not let it get to my head. I think I just take it as part of the race. And then you got people like Lotte Kopecky right now who seem to be able to dress and undress seamlessly in these conditions.
Not happy though. Not happy.
No, she was not happy.
Looked a bit mad, but
it's not very often that we see female riders get like angry during races.
Yeah. I think you don't see it so much on TV. I definitely see it and hear it in the peloton. I hear, and like I've certainly gotten angry in races before, but I think, you don't often see it on TV that close up. But yeah.
Brodie, who's the most vocal these days in the peloton? You know how there's always that one rider?
Who would it be? I'm not sure. Like, I would just say Italian riders in general definitely like to use their voice. But it seems like a lot more people are using the screaming tactic to try and move their way through the peloton. But I'm like, that's a bit of a cop-out because you should just be able to move through the peloton without screaming all the time. But yeah, so I'd say the Italian riders, it definitely used to be Chloe Hosking. She used to be quite vocal, but interestingly, she would often say occhio, which is an Italian word for like look out. So, which is kind of funny. So I wonder where she learned it from.
The days on Cipollini, maybe.
Yes. But yeah, no, these conditions look pretty gnarly, but I do think that, Dutch and Belgian riders certainly thrive in these conditions. I remember Shirin van Anrooy telling me at one of the last races that it didn't really bother her. I mean, I was like, this girl races cyclocross. She races in snow. She races in winter. But she actually did say that Ghent-Wevelgem was worse than cyclocross because I guess you had to be out there for 4 or so hours rather than an hour of power.
Brodie, I'm curious about your team's tactics today. Obviously, you're not at the race, so you didn't get to sit in on the meeting, but we've seen Lucinda Brand up the road for most of the race, and they just got caught as we're watching it, but I would find that an interesting rider to put up the road.
Yeah, I think that it kind of makes the race aggressive. It makes it hard and more selective. If we have a rider like Lucinda who, I mean, only she can know her true shape at the moment. She's obviously someone who could win this race, but if she's up the road, she is a threat. And it does mean that other teams have to work and not give her too much time. So they potentially have to use riders to bring her back. And also, this kind of attacking and chasing just makes the race more selective. You can see how many riders are going out the back now. Not only domestiques, but domestiques that could be helping potential race winners or people who might win in a scenario where it's a less hard race. So I do see that Trek's just trying to create a hard race and put pressure on the other teams to react.
What's it like going from the Cobbled Classics into the Ardennes? Because it's still a one-day race. It's still raced very differently from like a stage race, for example. But the Cobbled Classics are like a completely different beast than the Ardennes. And we noticed that a lot of teams have switched out their riders and they have new rosters for races like this, or there's kind of like a hybrid of the roster that they had before. Like clearly SD Worx has Lorena Wiebes and Lotte Kopecky on this team.
Mate, I think I'm ahead, guys, but Lorena Wiebes is just launched out of the bottom of the Cowberg into a massive
don't ruin
attack.
it if you're ahead. Oh, come on, Loren.
Yeah, you got to celebrate the win before us. Yeah, I think to answer your question, yeah, like we've seen the riders from the Cobbled Classics becoming a little bit more specialized in that sense, and then giving the riders who want to thrive in the Ardennes a bit more opportunity to like train specifically. And that also means that there's less chance of those riders, crashing beforehand or having an injury or just being, tired and sick. You want to come into these races like the Ardennes that, as we can see, are super challenging, just as fresh as possible. So I guess a few more climbing specific riders will skip out the Cobbled Classics and then really focus on hitting these 3 Ardennes and Brabantse Appeal as well, which seems to be kind of like the Dwars door Vlaanderen of the Ardennes week. So yeah, it's good because you can see this level is super high. And, riders like Elisa Balsamo on our team, she's having a bit of a break now because she's had a really busy first part of the season. And then so she'll be able to have a good race after all the classics and then reset for the stage races.
It seems like Wiebes is just trying to get in front of everybody so that she doesn't get spit out on the back of the climb. But I love this because it's like she went in so quick. But she
went in so quick though, thinking that maybe she was going to set a hard tempo for her teammates, because then she looked back like, oh, okay, there's a big gap now. But the bunch seems to be racing up the Kalberg quite conservatively. I thought with 2 to go, they might race a bit harder up here this time, but maybe this says something about how hard the race was. 1 to go, sorry.
Yeah, this is the second
last time up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still
they're
quite a big
across the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Amik's just having a drink. It's pretty tranquilo right now. What are your thoughts on this, Brodie?
I do think we might see a bigger group going to the final. We've seen that a little bit more in women's races now. Our sprinter kind of girls are getting a lot more versatile, as well as, I don't know, I think we could see a bigger group. Like there's a lot of really strong riders, all with like kind of similar opportunities these days, like similar access to training and resources and equipment and nutrition and expertise. So I think you're seeing that in the peloton, that there's a bit more of a level playing field, which does make the whole competition a lot harder. I'm really expecting to see some attacks on this lap now. I mean, you don't really want to take this many people to the final.
Brodie, we talked about Lucinda Brand being up the road, and you mentioned Elisa Balsamo just before. You know, your team in this race comes in with, you know, Elisa Longo-Borghini, Amanda Spratt, Shirin Van Anrooy, 3 riders that you would think could be a really good chance to go deep into the race. Can you talk a little bit about how the team balances having multiple threats in a race like this, and how you would approach it at this point in the race in particular?
My experience so far on Trek is that everybody's really honest with each other. Like, it's quite obvious we have a stacked team with multiple people who could win a race given the scenario. But from what I see so far is that we go in with these numbers. Before the race, the girls will talk about, you know, how they're feeling, what their shape's like realistically, rather than just always defaulting to 1 or 2 leaders no matter what. And then during the race, seeing how they feel, talking to each other, and using that honesty to then give the person who's going the best and experiencing the race the best the chance to win. And also riding for each other, like we saw in the Tour of Flanders, that Elisa Longo-Borghini was doing a lot of work for Shirin Van Anrooy, because realistically Shirin was going so well. And then towards the end, you saw the tactic change, and Shirin really kept the pace high so that Elisa Longo-Borghini could take the sprint for a podium. So the ability to adapt and change, like, it's not just like, you know, you're the leader from the very start and you're the leader no matter what. You do really have to adapt to how the race is raced and how you feel. So I think that's really, really mature of Trek and really professional to have all these riders that are able to be honest and know that when their opportunity comes, they'll be able to take it with both hands.
I'm surprised that we're seeing Kristen Faulkner off the front right now and that they're giving her any space. Obviously, there's still a chase going on behind, but you think by now people would know not to give her any room.
It shocks me every time.
how strong Wiebes has been today. So she just did that epic turn into the Kalberg, and now she's back on the front pulling.
She's really determined that people will stop saying that she's a pure sprinter, is what's happening.
Well, I think when
she's made her point.
Trofeo Binder, everybody was a bit shocked that she didn't. You know, it seems like in that time of year, all the kind of sprinters and classics riders stay in Belgium, and then you have your little climbing team come and do Binder. But then Lorena Wiebes showed up, and it actually did impact the race because nobody wanted to bring her to the line. But I would say it was a good tactic from Lorena or SD Worx to give her an opportunity to do a low pressure race that is quite climby, but can come to a sprint just to get that feeling in the legs. Like, it's extremely different training on climbs to doing a race with climbs. So it was cool to see her at a race like Binder, having a go. And I sound like she's a junior, having a go. Lorena Wiebes having a go at races.
Hey, I mean, speaking as a junior, she did win that race as an under 19, I believe. So she's always been quite versatile.
She was also, like, I've said this on other episodes, but like on DSM, they really kept her out of a lot of races. And I feel like it's been quite the opposite on SD Worx, and I really enjoyed it because you can't win as many races as Lorena wins and be as good as her and not be more versatile than you appear if you're only able to do the races that are sprint finishes. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm also shocked that Kristen Faulkner has some room. I mean, she's a powerful rider. She obviously has the ability to attack and then sustain such a high power that people can't respond that immediately and then sustain the same power as she has. I always use this one example that I was in a small move with Faulkner. At the Giro last year, I attacked and it was on a 9K climb and I was up the road and she bridged across to me and here I was thinking, great, a breakaway companion. This is so good. And she, went to take her turn on the front and just like rode me off the wheel. And I was like, there's no two ways about it. Like I could not sustain the power she was doing for any longer than, a few minutes. And we had like 6 kilometers ahead of us still. And I was just like, well, I'm going as hard as I can. And it could very well be that you see the riders behind going as hard as they can, but it's just not enough to get to Faulkner that quickly. But yeah, I think what you do need is multiple teams chasing, which we can see right now. If it's just one person trying to match her power to power, it's not going to work. So it's cool to see everybody reacting with multiple teams now.
That's not done yet, though. Weebus and Faulkner up the road. That would be quite an interesting race. One time I was in a race with Mariana Voss and she attacked and I was on her wheel at that point. And so I followed her attack. I don't know how I was able to follow it. Don't ask me. It was like, must have been some kind of magic. And we were off the front, just the two of us for 500 meters. And she looked behind and she saw me and she just went, huh, and then rode me off her wheel.
It's demoralizing and humbling at the same time just to be quite literally ridden off the wheel when you think you're going well. Yeah. But hey. Yeah, this is looking really hard now. Like I can just imagine riders are trying to dig really deep to find that bit to just stay in the group, like it becomes really a race of truth at this point when you can see riders just losing a wheel or two and you think, come on, just push a little bit harder, but then they might very well be on their limit. And it's just about trying to stay in the wheels and stay where you can. Pushing a limit always at this point in the race.
Yeah, we're really starting to see the big names come to the fore here, aren't we? Like you can see Van Vleuten in the background, see Van Roy, Lippett's there as well. Really starting to get into the crunch time these last few climbs. They get back to Valkenburg.
Another rider for me who's looked really strong today, and she's always super composed, is Rhiannon Marcus. So I don't know. I have a feeling she's going to have a really good day today, but it's going to be a question of what this group does in the next 15 kilometers, because even though riders are starting to get shelled, we haven't seen any massive attacks from the big guns yet.
Yeah, I agree with you about Marcus. I do think she's had to use a bit of energy earlier on though, which will probably take the sting out of her legs in the final. But yeah, I've been impressed by her for a long time. Like she doesn't know, but I'm a fan. Even when she won that stage at Norway and then when she won the Dutch Nationals, like I guess a bit of an outsider just considering how stacked all the riders in the Netherlands are. And then you've just seen her go from strength to strength, for lack of a better term, being on Jumbo. So it's cool, but I feel like, yeah, they do have options. They have many options in this group as well. Oh, hell go. An attack. How fun.
I'm still a little bit ahead, so I'm not going to say anything if it's
yeah, you have to contain your excitement.
I know. I'm just that's why I'm a bit silent. I'm just watching it unfold. But I'm sorry. If it's the last lap and it's the Kalberg, I might be yelling stuff. Maybe I'll just mute myself.
Just mute yourself.
You might you might have to mute yourself. This is an interesting move though from Soraya Paladin. I mean, she's someone who this race suits. She's like a sprinty climber or a climby sprinter, depending what time of year it is. And it's cool to see her go deep into the race, like with Cassie and Noadoma.
She's been super active today, and is obviously having a good day. And I sometimes wonder with riders like that, when they continue to play the Cassia card. I love Cassia, but would it be better to maybe just switch things around sometimes and give Soraya more of a leadership role?
Yeah, I feel like she does get that role, but maybe she doesn't have the entire team around her to do that, or like because she's not a really, really specific type of rider, it kind of depends how the race plays out. But it is cool to see Canyon being really aggressive now. Like they do have that depth, and they have a very versatile team in that a lot of those riders kind of can be in the mix in all kinds of races, which is cool. I'm just a little bit afraid. I feel like I'd be watching Faulkner. I feel like she could go again, but then, you know.
Also, we've got Demi is obviously up here now, and that's, yeah. And Annemiek has been close to the front for the whole last lap, and she's obviously not had the season she would have hoped so far. So yeah, as I said, her name.
Oh, wow.
She heard me. She was like,
she did.
Her ears started tickling, and she was like, "Oh, I better go now."
Oh, yes.
The rare races that Van Vleuten actually hasn't won as well.
Yeah, she's been close, but
yeah.
This is one of my favorite races because I feel like it's really hard to predict. Like the year that Kasia won in 2019 was maybe one of my favorite races that year. Like that was just such an awesome race, and her win was awesome. Obviously, Marta last year was just incredible and was like the start of. I've been saying that Marta was a rider to watch for like 2 years before that, and for that to be her first big win and to take it here, I just feel like this race has something special. And it's not been on the calendar super long, obviously, like every single year in 2017. And I think it's just a really special race. I'm bummed that I don't think it gets the love that it should, in my opinion. I don't know.
Well, it was a big classic for the women back in the day of, I think, Leontine van Moorsel, and then it just disappeared because I guess they didn't have the funding or supposed interest, which is a shame. But I mean, I love this race. I love watching it. And it's like Mark's really, well, as Brodie was saying, Brabantse Pijl is kind of the Dwarsdorf Flandern before the week of the Ardennes. Oh, this is a good move.
It's interesting to see Annemiek van Vleuten attack, but she didn't keep going. And I thought that was more of her benefit, was that she could attack and keep going. Whereas maybe if she had waited to the Kouwberg, it's not long enough for her to really carve out an advantage. But she actually sat up when she saw that there was a lot of people still on the wheel. And now we're seeing a bunch of counterattacks that we haven't seen anything big from Demi or Elisa Longo Borghini yet. So maybe those riders are kind of, they're strong enough to stay in the group, but try and save those accelerations for, potentially race winning moves. But it's cool that we're seeing the teammates of teammates in general attacking and making the race hard. So it kind of is giving everyone a little bit of an opportunity there just to see how many people they can crack before the final.
Exactly. And I think in a pre-race interview, Annemiek was saying, this is her last year racing, so she says, and this is one of the races she hasn't ticked off that very long list of races she's won. And she really needed a very hard race today and it to be going into the Kouwberg super hard because she recognizes the effort that you need to sustain up there just isn't long enough for her to crack other riders. She prefers the longer climbs like Liège where you have about 5 minutes. So for me, I don't think today will be the day for Annemiek, just looking at how the peloton is riding now on the TV. Maybe this is a day for Liane Lippert for the Movistar team, because she's not been super active. I don't know if she was in one of the earlier moves today, but since the live coverage has come on.
I hope so. Obviously, I want Trek to win. But I do really rate Liane Lippert as a rider, and I hope that, sometimes from the outside it doesn't really appear like Movistar go all in for one specific rider, except for Annemiek, or, obviously because she wins a lot of races. But it would be cool to see Liane Lippert launch one of her signature extremely punchy moves on the Kouwberg. It is a climb that would suit her capabilities really well. And she was showing really good form at Brabantse Pijl as well. So, but again, she has, the great thing is she has Annemiek on her team. So, either of those girls could win. But I think, like you're right, it's not long enough for Annemiek, but you never know. The thing with Annemiek is, although she's not typically punchy, she has probably the best fatigue resistance out of this whole peloton. So at the end of a hard race, it's likely that she's actually the freshest, relatively speaking. So we saw that at the World Championships in her move, and it was surprising, but like just given Annemiek's training and physiology over the many years she's been training the way she does have the best fatigue resistance, I would say, and that changes things at the end of a hard race for sure.
Somebody said in the chat that they're trying to spot Cavalli, and I think pretty sure I spotted her there near the back. And obviously we got Spratty up at the front here, and I just saw Flordy Mackay come back on to the back. So there's still a lot of really, really interesting riders in this group. We're in like the crunch time, 10K to go. Crunch time, chaos.
Is it too early to talk about what happens if Vollering and Kopecky get to the top of the climb together? What happens with SD Worx, how they ride that?
The answer is they race each other.
Exactly. I think if that's the case, Demi's going to have to put in a big whack and go.
I think Demi will attack the Kalberg before Lotte, and Lotte will be there and able to sprint if it comes back. I mean, Demi hasn't made any big moves yet. Again, we saw her strength at Brabantse Pijl, and I think being a Dutch rider as well always gives you that bit of extra motivation. But yeah, it's interesting to see how big the group is now and questioning how small it will be at the final. Like last year, one of the FDG riders was up the road with 5Ks to go and, you know, had a decent little gap, and then it just disintegrated as soon as everybody started really, really going for the final. So it's pretty cool to see how many attacks are happening here from all the teams. It's really exciting racing. And yeah, you just don't know. There's so many, like we could discuss so many potential winners from potential scenarios. So it just keeps you glued to the screen.
If you were going to pick somebody, Brodie, who would you pick watching this right now?
Who would I pick?
You can have a heart pick and you can have a head pick. I'll allow it.
I want Elisa Longo-Borghini to win because she hasn't used her kick yet. And she did a lot of work at the Tour of Flanders and still got a podium in a sprint at the end. So I would like to see Elisa Longo-Borghini win this race. Yeah. Who do I actually think is going to win? I think it'll come down to a reduced sprint, and I think someone like Lotte Kopecky could win.
Or Soraya Paladin is going to win because, like,
that would be awesome.
She's riding so well right now. She's off the front again. She's got a gap. She's like, this is super impressive from her right now.
Totally. Like, I'm not surprised because I know her strength and her versatility. But I'm
the grimace.
Stoked to see her just going this hard. I mean, obviously a Cassia win would be nice because we all love Cassia and she's won this race before and I know she really loves it. It's just a question of how. I don't think she'll be given any rope on the Kalberg, but I know that she can put out an incredibly high powered weight on a climb like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's so attacky. It's going to be like, who's got anything left? Go Soraya.
Well, watching Annemiek has in the past few minutes been doing a ton of work with all these micro accelerations, and she tried to bridge across to Soraya, but just actually sat up. So it's making me question what we're going to see happen on the Kalberg with her, because Lippert is just sitting pretty right now. But and now it looks like another rider has gone clear from FDG. I'm not going to say who, which is going to be.
Still a spoiler if you don't tell us who. No, just kidding.
You can guess who, because she's been doing a ton of work today too. But this is a rider you don't want to give room.
Grace.
Yeah.
Is it Grace?
She did the same a few years ago, I think. She attacked late, like with almost 10K to go in Amstel Gold.
Yeah, it's 2021.
I mean, you've got to, it's at this point of the race, you know, everybody's really tired. And so putting someone on the front and just riding back those riders that are up the road becomes a lot harder. Like everyone's legs are empty. Like I would have to say I've only done Amstel, I think maybe twice or three times, but it's the first race where I truly felt my legs burning the next day. I was shocked. I'd never had that feeling before. I was on Tibco and I woke up the next day and I was like, what is going on? Like my sleep was hot. Like my legs were just hurting. I was like, never done as many little uphill sprints in my life in a race like Amstel Gold. So it is so hard. It's hard to comprehend just how how much everybody's legs would be hurting right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the climbs one after another this entire race. There's a ton of climbing in this race, and they're all like 1K ish. So they're longer climbs than in Flanders, but they grate on you. Like they just take something out of you every single time. It doesn't matter where you're positioned in the peloton. It just takes something out of you every single time you hit one of these climbs. By the time they get into these circuits with the 3 climbs, it's just like every single time it's just like boom, 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 punches to the leg. So makes sense that at this point, 7 kilometers to go, as I'm watching it, everybody is like, oh man, this has been a long day. The weather is horrendous. They might be cold. I don't know. Spectators are wearing down jackets, so that's not obviously not warm. So yeah, it's a great race though.
It's almost over.
The scenario could very well change within the last 3 kilometers, and then as we saw last year, the scenario can change within the last 300 meters as well if everyone looks at each other. So, I mean, I know you're ahead, Loren, but if Grace does make it across and can push on with Soraya, that is a dangerous move, and it puts pressure on, SD Worx, Trek, Movistar to just try and reel it back in. Like, you really do need to just use up your domestics to just try and mitigate the damage to that gap for sure.
Exactly, because what we've seen on the Kalberg happen quite a few times is it's raced so hard, and then quite often there's that little lull at the top because people are obviously completely effed by this point. But it's also sometimes that realization, oh shit, there are still other riders around me. And it's that moment then, I think, when Cavalli made her move last year and just powered away.
I have a question. Is Alex Manley still in this group?
I was wondering if Faulkner had any teammates, but I've honestly only seen one Jaco Alula helmet.
There's two Jaco Alulas in there, and the other one is blonde. I can't see the number because she's got a gilet on, but blonde hair coming out the back.
Ingvild, the Norwegian, maybe.
Possibly.
I would not be surprised if she was still there. This race kind of suits her as well. But I would say, I don't think Alex Manley is in her best race winning form at the moment. But on paper, this is a race that would suit her and that she would be able to win from like a reduced sprint. But yeah, I just don't think she has the form at the moment. She had COVID, etc. But yeah, in the future, I think this is a race she could target.
I think there's maybe three Jaco Alulas.
Yeah, I think there was 3 Jaco riders in there. Yeah.
But one of them
they've had a very quiet spring, other than Faulkner's podium at Strada.
Matilda says that and San Sebastian is
Saint Esteban.
Saint Esteban, sorry.
It's easy because she's Basque and there's a city in the Basque country called San Sebastian.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking in my head. Saint Esteban Chavez. It's funny.
Wow.
All right, so 2 up the road with around 8 seconds to go. 8 seconds to the peloton.
Dangerous riders up the road.
Yeah, I think that the riders that have been saving their kick will they obviously have to use it on the Kalberg now. It's been quite an effort to make this move, but once Grace Brown is in this position, I also think she feels extremely motivated as well. Once she's got herself in the front of the race, she can find her rhythm. She can pick her own lines, and so she'll be giving it absolutely everything right now. But I think with only an 8-second gap, that can just disappear instantly on the climb like the Kalberg. So riders like Demi Vollering, Elisa Longoborghini will have to, Liana Lippert will have to use their energy on the Kalberg if they want this move to come back.
I love that someone said Group 2 syndrome, please.
Interesting there that Grace Brown turned around to get Paladin to pull through and she refused. So I guess she's looking for Cassia back in the main group. Or has Shabby done much yet? She's been on the front a few times, I think.
Shabby's been pretty active today. But maybe Paladin is really feeling, she's had an incredible race today. She would be feeling it now and probably doesn't think that she can hold on to Brown's wheel, I'm guessing. if she goes over the top.
It is not the moment for people to be pausing, though, but we've seen this time and time again.
Grace just has to go full gas now and give it everything, and then whatever happens, you know, she's got teammates in the back. But this is the perfect situation. And actually, if FDJ, it's Marta Cavalli, and is Cecile there today?
Yeah, she is.
She is. I mean,
she's there.
I've seen
to
her
have
there.
Grace up the front, if she can crest the climb and then put in a bit of a last effort. Again, I'm a bit of ahead in the coverage right now, but
I think it's going to depend how hard they hit the Cowberg when they get there, because it's entirely possible that they would hit there if they don't have enough time going into that. The group behind, if they hit it hard enough, they might just bridge.
Oh, wow. This is not what I thought was going to happen.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I'm okay. Don't say anything, because now I'm just seeing Group 2 turn into the Cowberg, and I'm expecting fireworks. But yeah, I mean, it's such an impressive ride by the two riders out the front. This is exactly what they have to do. They can't leave anything out there now. But yeah, I'm just really curious what's happening behind. Like, if not now, when?
Well, the pressure is on now. I'll just bite my tongue, because
you
guys
to
are on the same. I'll contain the excitement within, because two of our favorite riders are doing really good.
Really good. Yeah, you need to put your phone on mute. Yeah.
I was going to say that I wonder how Voss is going to do today. She's been up there like all day. She's been just hovering. And remember when she won Ghent Wevelgem and she like literally never hit the front? She just like chilled, waited for Trek to kind of make their own mistakes, and then Loren.
Here we go. Wow. Whoever said Miranda Marcus was on a good day was not wrong.
Yeah, seriously.
Yep. Yeah, that actually.
Oh, no way.
Wow.
And where is Vollering?
Yeah, where is Vollering? I don't see her in the top. Maybe that's her just behind. Yeah.
She's taken off the gilet. That's why I didn't recognize her.
Wow. Annemiek van Vleuten way out the back.
Why is she riding other riders back across when her teammates up in front?
Oh, guys, here comes the move. It's what I said. I wish you could have asked me to pick the winner.
Shush.
Loren, I don't know if I can mute you myself.
I think you might have to. Yeah, it's hard to have a conversation at the same time. I don't know how the commentators do it. But
the beauty of this is that only 56 people get to see us be in shock, and then I get to edit it afterwards.
That's a good point. I mean, from what I say, because I'm not ahead, Demi Vollering is now using that big explosive kick that else has used a few times. So she was very patient, which is really mature and awesome to see. And we've seen her do that in a few races as well. So yeah, that's a hard one to bring back.
And as somebody said before, Kopecky in the group behind just waiting. So if Vollering gets brought back, then you've still got Kopecky ready to go.
Yeah, that's
all right.
That's
I can join the conversation now, I think.
Okay.
How many times has Kasia been in this situation in races?
Where too many, Abby.
Yeah.
Too many to count.
Oh,
but,
come on, Leanna Lippert. What do you just sit up on the front? No, everyone's just looking behind.
Go full match.
I think
you just need to channel your inner Matthew Vanderpool and like, if in doubt, let it out. Easier said than done. But I was watching Matthew's win yesterday just because it's fascinating. The one in 2019, I think it was, and yeah, it looks like they just left it a bit too late to react.
Yeah,
to someone like Demi.
Why is Rihanna driving it? I mean,
why not?
No one else from Jumbo is in that group, right?
It doesn't matter. They're just like racing for second.
It doesn't matter. Someone has to do it. Someone has to drive it. Like, that's the thing. Like, you either do it and think maybe you can still win from it, or you don't do it at all and you're definitely not winning at all. So, I think it's always damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like if someone starts driving it, they're like, oh, you shouldn't be working too hard. But if they drive it and then they win, they're like, oh,
Yep.
good job, amazing. Like AJ did, in
Yeah,
Paris-Roubaix.
exactly.
But
Just
this
go back
is
1 week.
incredible.
And everyone was like, why was AJ doing so much work?
Yeah. But
That's
if
why.
she'd lost, they would have been like, I mean, yeah. Whoa.
Was that
That
Kopecky
was
in second as well?
Kopecky. I believe so.
And Shirin got third, I
We
think.
see-
Wow.
we're gonna see
That's
him race after finish.
That was a good sprint by Shirin.
That's some lovely energy right there. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
surprised that this is how Demi won. Sorry if I'm ahead from anyone, but yeah, it's this spoiler. She was super patient. We've seen the tactic work in the past. Like, the thing is, though, not everyone could use that tactic. Someone like Demi, who knows she's not going to get dropped from the front group, she's not going to struggle to be in that group. And so as long as she can be there, then she actually has the power to choose when she wants to use her energy. Someone who's not as fit as Demi would maybe have to try and get ahead of the race or get in a move, or like she really has that ability to choose, given her strength and fitness. So it's really impressive that she put it in the right place. And yeah, good for us to get a podium, especially with having Shirin was attacking a lot earlier. But
She's had an incredible spring. Will Shirin go on to race? I think, did I read in the press release this is her last race for the spring, or will she race the next two?
I'm actually not entirely sure. She has done a lot of racing, but she also started late. Like, the team didn't make her come to the early races. Like, she didn't race Strade Bianche because she had such a good cyclocross season. And then they, more or less enforced an off season for her, in order to make sure she could come back for these races flying. So I definitely think I would assume she's doing the next couple of races, because she's in such great form.
Yeah, clearly.
And yeah, it's cool to get a podium here as well. We haven't got that many races in the Netherlands, which always surprises me given how good Dutch women's cycling is. I think it must mean a lot to Demi and also mean a lot to Shirin if she did actually get third. I haven't seen results yet to perform at a home race. It's really cool.
I'm really glad that we got to see Demi and Lotta hug. The whole storyline after Strada was like slightly infuriating. Sure. I felt like the people love when women are pit against other women, so I'm really happy to see them hugging on the TV.
Yeah,
for us all to see.
I agree. It was a fair win, and I think it's the year of 1-2s in men's and women's cycling. It's crazy, isn't it? That you've got these options and then you kind of seem to be getting these 1-2 results. Like, it's very strange and impressive, and also just shows the depth of teams.
I think that win will mean quite a bit to Vollering. She's talked about how these races are some of the her biggest targets for the year, but also she made a couple of mistakes at Brabantse-Pijl on Wednesday. She didn't eat enough. She admitted that afterwards, and she started her sprint too early. So to be able to win this one and win it the way she did, I think will be very satisfying for her.
Definitely. And like having that race, just before this race to really see where you're at, like not much is going to change in a few days with your form. So it is cool that you have these races to just be like, all right, won't make that mistake again. Or yep, I felt like this or felt like that. So it's cool that she was able to rectify that and just absolutely bring it home for the win, like quite literally bring it home. So,
it's always fun to watch like how Amstel goes and then be like, okay, well, we've got two more races that are very, very similar. Obviously, Flèche Wallonne ends on the Mur de Huy, which is really,
very
really
specific
brutal
kind of finish.
Yeah,
that only suits like a handful of riders. And speaking of Brodie, who would be your pick for that?
Who would be my pick for that race? Oh, I would say Marta, but I just don't think she's back there yet. I think, and actually this is an inside view from Shirin, thinks that Fem van Empel could win that race.
Oh shit.
Yeah, she's like, I honestly think she could win Flèche Wallonne, and I'm like, wow, it's a big call, but it is a race that's kind of a race of truth. Like, if you can get to the bottom of the Mur without having used too much energy, and you are just someone who thrives on steep climbs, and it's not extremely technical. It's not that tactical. Again, a lot of the time you just want to get to the Mur in a good position. And then it's just like, see what you can do. So maybe we could see someone like Fem Van Empel. I believe that Gaia Riolini is racing it. Whether she has the raw power on that shorter climb to get to the top, I'm not sure. But definitely the Mur de Huy feels more flat to someone like Gaia Riolini than it does to the rest of us. So, yeah, I'd like to see, from a personal perspective, Amanda Spratt like back at her best game and giving the Mur de Huy a go, because she's also small, punchy, and thrives on those steep climbs. So, yeah, my outsider is Leanna Lippert. I think she's been doing a lot of training, a lot longer training than maybe she's done in the past. Not that I really know her training, but it looks like Annemiek wasn't able to follow those punchy moves today. And yeah, Leanna Lippert would be my outsider for Flesh Alone for sure.
If anybody in the chat has any questions for Brodie, since the race is over now, shoot your questions into the chat and we can ask Brodie some questions as we wrap up the episode. Is there anything in the race that we should talk about? You guys think?
Sorry, I was just going to say that I think the Van Vleuten explosion is interesting. You know, obviously she's got bigger targets later in the year, but she hasn't been good this season so far, and I wonder what this means for the Giro and for the Tour later on. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe she's just building perfectly and this was a blip today. She had a bad day. I don't know, but I'll be watching that one with interest for sure.
Yeah, I wonder like what has changed. Obviously, she's been racing for such a long time and she has her training so dialed, and this year just has not gone her way at all. She's obviously had some bad luck with mechanicals in Omloop and other she's not had the smoothest run at the races, but this particular situation, she looked like she just blew up.
Yeah, I often wonder how many, like Annemiek is always going to be incredible, and I do think that once we reach this, there's 3 large tours to come, and I think they are what she's really targeting, and those will suit her capabilities a lot more, just that day in, day out on the bike, longer climbs, more calculated efforts. But I think that I don't necessarily think Annemiek is getting worse. I just think everyone else is getting better. Like even between this year and last year, a whole bunch of these riders at the Ardennes have gone to like specific altitude camps and had a rest after the spring classics and have access to all the training and resources they need that Annemiek, to her credit, was kind of doing herself a long time ago, and the rest of the women's peloton just wasn't there. And it does make a difference. So I believe that I don't think Annemiek's performance is faltering. I think everyone else is just kind of able to catch up. Like I was amazed how many women's teams were training at altitude. And obviously if you're training at altitude and it's managed well and professionally, not just here or there, it offers a huge advantage. You're able to recover quicker. You're able to, and if you time it well, you're able to perform better. So I think that's probably what it is. And yeah, I do think that by the time the Tour de France comes around, we'll see Annemiek at her very, very best.
And let's not forget that the World Championships are closer this year as well. So if she's planning on having a really big block and trying to maybe take the Vuelta, the Giro and the Tour, I don't know if that's her plan. The World Championships, I think, are a week and a half or something after the finish of the Tour de France. So there's a great deal of racing in a very short period of time coming up.
Yeah.
Brodie, we have one question from a listener. With the crash at Gent-Wevelgem and having to reset your goals for the season, what are you targeting now?
So yeah, it's crazy. You really have to do this big mental shift of like all these things I've been working towards every day since, the off season finished last year have just been pulled out from underneath me. So I'm actually aiming for the Tour of Switzerland, Tour de Suisse. I will probably be racing before that, but in terms of getting to a place where I'm happy with my strength and fitness and having some racing in the legs, the Tour de Suisse is my first big goal. I really enjoyed that race last year. There's a time trial in it, and I'm obviously spending a lot of time on the TT bike on the ergo. So hopefully I got to make that count somewhere. Yeah, and then just like I don't know if I'm selected for the Tour de France or not, and anything can change. So my goal remains the same as last year: is that just uh, work towards being in top shape for the Giro and the Tour de France. And then if I do get selected, then at least I'll be ready. And if I don't get selected, I don't know, I'll find something else to do, like a mountain bike race or a gravel race or something, or a bike, I don't know, something else, a hard training ride.
Natalia asks if you prefer salty or sweet snacks.
Sweet. I'm definitely a sweet person. So one of the things that, like, I don't really like chips. To me, they just taste like piles of salt, but I'll more than happily like eat a spoonful of sugar out of the sugar jar. So there's your answer. But in races, at the end of a race, if I feel like something's sweet, I know that I probably haven't fueled well enough in the race. And I'm really good at fueling. I can take on a lot of, like, I usually take in between 100 to 120 grams of carbs an hour, no problem. But if for whatever reason, like, you know, a race that's cold and rainy and difficult, if I haven't eaten enough and I feel like something sweet after the race, that's my sign. Usually after a race, I don't feel immediately hungry, but I am craving something salty and, like, you know, actual food rather than sugary water. So that's just a side note there. It's not a matter of calculating carbs. It's a matter of, do I feel like sweet or salty at the end of a race?
Which leads to a very good question. If you were at Flanders this year, would you have accepted the Fritz that they were giving to people at the podium?
I'm a pizza, so I would have been like, thanks, and then given them to the mechanic or something. Because I just don't, I don't know. I'm not a chip person. I don't know if I'd have to be super dehydrated if I really felt like chips. Yeah, I don't know. I actually am a fan of the plain pasta and rice with salt at the end of a race. But yeah, I think maybe for the whole Belgian experience, I would have asked for chips and a beer had I actually won the race.
That was a perfect athlete response.
No, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. There's no shame. I think chips have a good place in an athlete diet because they do contain a lot of salt. Living in like my boyfriend smashes the chips after all of his training rides, and he also loses a lot more salt than me. So I feel like it's a very wise nutritional choice.
There's a place for everything in nutrition. You can have cake too. It's just like about when and where.
When you eat. Exactly.
I'll also eat lollies after dinner at night because they taste good, whereas other athletes will tell you they're only for during races. But again, that's my sweet tooth coming out.
Hey, Linda Williamson, she used to not be able to sleep before a race unless she ate lollies like before going to bed. And she's the world champion. So
there you go. I back that. Actually, one of my dietitians once told me it's a good idea to have a little sweet snack before bed if you're in a heavy training block, because it does just keep your glucose topped up. And I'm like, I mean, you don't need to justify it to me, but sure, that's nice to know.
All right, let's I want to talk like just really quick about like two things in the top 10, and then we can wrap up this episode and let Brodie get back to her healing. It's very important. I think everybody here wants to see you back in the races. So I think I want to talk about how Kasia finished 4th, because she always peaks for this block of races. And so now I believe I will be picking her for Liège-Bastogne-Liège. But Soraya Paladin 5th, Canyon SRAM 4-5. They do this all the time. Yeah. Pfeiffer Georgie with a really good result in 7th, considering that she was targeting the Cobble Classics and is kind of coming down from her targets at this point before she kind of resets for the rest of the summer. And Annemiek van Vleuten still finished 11th. She was in the back of that group. So she climbed back up. So I wonder if she had a mechanical actually, or something along those lines, where she was dropped by that group and it wasn't a fitness thing. Because to get back into that group the way that they were going, obviously they weren't going full gas, but they still had a huge gap on her on the Cowberg. Thoughts? Anybody?
I agree with your sentiment about Canyon SRAM in 4th and 5th. It's just like, you know, and often we see Elise Shabby in the top 10 as well. I do wonder whether they just, you know, don't take the race into their own hands and just kind of be more passive and then have 3 girls in the final rather than attacking. But at the same time, we obviously love seeing riders attack. So I don't know. I think a lot of the time you don't want to say just wait, be patient, but this was a race that SD Worx was going to take into their own hands. So I wonder if they could have just tried to, send Soraya in the final, or have Soraya sprint in the final, or have Cassie attack. And, I don't know how else they could have done it, but maybe they just need to wait and not take it into their own hands. Like, I know that other riders, the other teams aren't looking at Canyon SRAM to take responsibility of the race. So I'm not sure why they do that, but it is very good to watch, and it's an awesome ride by Soraya and Cassie to finish fourth. So, and Annemiek, I think we'll find out very soon on Twitter, because she'll probably write about what happened.
The race wasn't hard enough for her. Yeah.
Surely. Oh gosh, it looked very hard. But yes, I know what you mean.
Also, we had Ashwoman Passio up there, so this is another week for her. Sylvia Persico, who won Brabant's Appeal. That was a really good race, a really good win. Some very, very interesting tactics, good and bad. So I feel like there's a lot of interesting riders in this bunch. And Flèche Wallonne, as Loren said, is a very specific finish. But Liège-Bastogne-Liège is pretty wide open for me when I look at the top 20 of the race today.
Yeah, that's a very good
wide
point.
open, but like heavily skewed toward SD Worx, but wide open if you just kind of ignore SD Worx. If you just pretend they're not there, then it's wide open.
Yeah, I reckon we could see, I know I race for Trek-Segafredo now, but I do actually think that, seeing that I don't feel like a racer anymore since I'm just sitting on the couch watching races, I'm allowed to judge. I actually do think that Trek could have a really good Liège-Bastogne-Liège with Spratty and Elisa Longo, Shirin, Guy Riolini there to support as well. I really see that. I think they'll come up really well for that race. And yeah, Sylvia Persico, I'm such a fan. I saw a video of her wheeling the other day in the Amstel Gold Recon, and I was just like mind blown. So I like to see her continue to win races too.
Oh, and Demi's dog is at the finish.
Oh, I love that dog. I mean, again, I'm just a fan who watches Demi's dog on Instagram. So it's so cool.
All right. Does anyone have any last minute questions for Brodie or for us? Or Matt, Loren, is there anything you guys want to chat about really quick, and then we can wrap it up?
I guess, Brodie, I'd be keen to know how you would approach the SD Worx problem, like seeing them go 1-2 in so many races this season. If you were going into Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Flèche Wallonne, how do you try and combat that?
It's hard to say. A lot of teams want to just do their own plan and race the race how they want to race it, and not always be talking about what other teams are doing. But maybe given the dominance of SD Worx, it is worth just being like, right, these are the riders you mark, like in football, and you just mark them at all times. So that would be one strategy. Otherwise, personally, I think that, again, from the couch, if I was in that group in the final, if I hadn't done too much work earlier, it would mean I would just get on the front and try and close the gap immediately. Or I don't know. I think if we had teammates there, you just absolutely burn one to do everything you can to not let that gap go out. But when Demi attacked, it was already such a reduced elite. It's pretty hard to answer that question. And I mean, Demi and Lotta together are both just such strong riders. I mean, SD Worx do hire extremely already winning riders and then put them all together. So we've seen that work in favour, and we've also seen it cause issues, but I think they've obviously figured out how to make it work in their favour. I think just maybe marking riders.
I wonder if a lot of their success this year is because Van de Breggen is obviously in the car, but she's had a year under her belt as a director now, and so she's getting more used to that role. And I wonder if she's been part of that success, and not as many tactical mistakes that we've seen in the past. Even when they've won, they've had some pretty terrible tactics sometimes. But this year, it seems with all the 1-2s, I don't know. I think that part of it might come down to Van de Breggen being in the car. for more races.
Yeah, I agree, and I think diversifying the team, and that Lotte Kopecky was their flagship sprinter, and then they hired Lorena Wiebes, and Lotte Kopecky has been able to adapt to a lot more different types of races, which, yeah, she's always an option. There's not really that many races this time of year that you'd ever count her out of winning. So, and yeah, she's just Lotte Kopecky. She's incredible. So,
all right, well, that's it. That's all we got. Brodie, thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing having you on the podcast, and we hope your healing continues to go well and that you're back in the races soon.
No worries. Yeah, I'm actually going to get on the ergo while the men's race is on. It makes the time pass a lot quicker. And yeah, thank you. I hope to be racing again soon. It feels like such a long time. It feels hard to watch from the couch, but I'm trying to, even these discussions about tactics and what you would do and watching it from the other side, I believe there's a lot to be learned from it as well. Because obviously I'm just not thinking about myself at all. I'm trying to analyze everything else. So I think it's helpful. It's helpful to have this perspective. And your guys' perspective too. Like it's a cool discussion. People whose job it is to analyze races. So thank you.